Jason was just an ordinary young man living in a small town surrounded by nature and time-worn traditions. He had no grand title, no political influence, no wealth that could sway opinions. People knew him as the boy who worked at the bakery and helped carry groceries for the elderly. There was nothing extraordinary about his background, but there was something extraordinary in his heart. In Jason's town, people often waited for the mayor to fix the broken bridge, waited for the government to send better teachers to the school. What an area in his heart. Waited for anyone to make life better, but waiting never brought change. Jason noticed this, and while others pointed fingers inside, Jason asked himself a simple question. Why not me? He had no formal training. He had no position of power. But one morning, after a storm had knocked down trees and flooded parts of the town, Jason picked up an axe, walked into the street and began clearing the path. Alone. At first people watched. Some smiled, others shrugged. But by afternoon, 2 boys joined him. Then an old man brought a shovel. By sunset, a group of 20 was working beside him, clearing debris, opening roads, helping stranded families. Not because they were ordered to, but because they were inspired. Leadership is not about titles. It never has been. It's not about having a badge or being elected. True leadership begins with doing, and that's exactly what Jason did. In the absence of authority, he chose responsibility. That choice changed everything. What makes someone a leader isn't what's written before their name. It's what they do when no one is watching, when no one asks, when no one expects it. Jason didn't need to wait for permission. He gave himself permission to care. And by caring deeply, he led others toward hope. People often think leadership is reserved for CEOs, presidents, or generals. But that's a myth. Leadership is everyday courage. It's choosing to stand when others sit. It's choosing to act when it's easier to stay still. It's choosing to believe that you matter, even when the world hasn't told you so. Jason didn't know where the path would lead. He just knew he had to take the first step. That is where leadership begins, not on a podium, but in a quiet decision to make a difference. True leadership starts from within. It doesn't arrive with applause. It doesn't knock at your door. It rises quietly, wanting light inside your heart. Inside your heart. Jason wasn't trained to be a leader. He simply listened to the voice inside him that whispered, do something. And he did. That voice exists in all of us. The one that tells us we're capable of more. The one that says, you can help. You can try. You can lead. Sometimes we ignore it. Sometimes we fear it. But when we listen, really listen, something shifts. Confidence grows not from what we have, but from what we choose to believe. Jason believed that even one person could make a difference. That belief shaped his actions, and action shaped reality. While others hesitated, he began. He trusted that the strength to lead wasn't something given by others. It was already inside him. The world often teaches us to look outside for leadership, but the greatest power we have is already within us. It doesn't matter your age, your background, or your circumstances. If you have a heart that cares and hands willing to help, you are already halfway there. Jason's inner strength, his quiet conviction lit a fire that others could feel. His belief in himself made others believe in themselves, too. And that's the essence of inner leadership. It doesn't command, it inspires. It doesn't push, it invites. And most importantly, it doesn't begin with others. It begins with you. While others talked about what should be done, Jason focused on doing. Action over complaints. That was his simple motto, even if he didn't put it into words. It was in how he moved, how he picked up the first fallen branch, how he helped carry buckets of clean water to families whose pipes had broken. Not once did he ask, well, why is no one helping? He just helped. Complaining is easy. It's the default mode for many. But action requires something more. Courage, patience, and vision. Jason didn't waste time waiting for someone else to lead the way. He created the path himself, one step, one act of kindness, one effort at a time. He showed that you don't need a grand plan to start. You don't need a big crowd to move forward. You just need to move, to do what you can with what you have, right where you are. That's where progress begins. That's how change is made. Through action, people began noticing something different about Jason. He never told others what to do. He never asked for credit. He simply did what needed to be done and others followed. That's how true influence begins. Not through noise, but through action. Influence grows through example. Jason's hands were often dirty, his clothes soaked from rain or sweat. He never stood above others. He worked beside them. His strength wasn't in loud speeches or big promises. It was in quiet consistency. Day after day, he showed up. And people noticed. His example spoke louder than any words. The children at school started copying him. They formed little teams to collect litter from the streets. Young adults began volunteering at the local shelter. Elders began sharing stories and advice to help others grow. Jason's way of leading made others feel that they could lead too. People didn't follow Jason because they had to. They followed him because they wanted to. They saw something real. They saw someone who didn't just talk, but acted. And by watching him, they began to believe in their own power. Leadership is not just about leading the way, it's about showing others they can walk beside you. Jason proved that influence is not about control. It's about contribution, not about position, but about purpose. Leadership is service. Jason didn't serve to be seen. He served because he saw people hurting. He saw broken windows, torn clothes, empty water buckets. And instead of saying, that's someone else's problem, he made it his mission, not for praise, but out of compassion. He taught others that to lead is to serve, not with ego, but with empathy, not with orders, but with open arms. He offered rides to the hospital. He taught kids how to read in the evenings. He fixed fences and planted gardens, not because he had to, but because he could. Service isn't weakness. It's strength in its purest form. It shows up when you're tired. It rises when others fall. It lifts people, not by shouting, but by caring. Jason's service reminded the town of something they had forgotten. That leadership doesn't come from above. It rises from within us all. From the baker to the teacher, from the farmer to the grandmother, each person has the power to serve, and through service we lead. The storm that swept through Jason's town was the worst in years. Heavy rains flooded the streets, trees were uprooted, and homes were damaged beyond recognition. Panic rippled through the community like the wind itself. Families clung to what little they had. The town's usual routine, quiet, predictable, peaceful, was shattered overnight. But it is in times like these, when life feels uncertain and heavy, that true leaders are revealed. Jason, who had always been known as the boy with kind eyes and helping hands, suddenly became the anchor people looked to. He didn't wait for instructions. He didn't hide in fear. He rose with the dawn, waded through the water, and began checking on neighbors. One by one, house by house, he helped a mother carry her infant through knee-high water. He tied down roof sheets flapping in the wind with rope he found in an old shed. He cleared the community center's entrance so it could be used as a shelter. When challenges struck, Jason didn't step back. He stepped forward. Not because he had all the answers, but because he had enough heart to try. That's the beautiful thing about adversity. It reveals the invisible leaders. When everything feels broken, people don't look for perfection. They look for someone who cares. They look for someone who will move first. That was Jason. He didn't wait for orders. He didn't need to. He saw what needed to be done and he acted. That's what makes a leader. Not a title, not a uniform, but a willingness to act when others can't. The more Jason did, the more others followed. But the magic of Jason's leadership wasn't just in what he did. It was in what he awakened in others. He didn't try to be the hero. He tried to make everyone else feel like they could be. He turned helpers into leaders. That's what empowered leadership looks like. It doesn't hold the spotlight. It shares it. It doesn't say follow me with pride. It says walk with me with kindness. Jason began asking others what they could contribute. A shy teenager, Mia, was good with kids, so he asked her to organize playtime in the shelter. A retired carpenter, Mr. Ray, still had his tools, so Jason encouraged him to help rebuild damaged doors. An elderly woman, Clara, made soup from whatever she could find, and Jason made sure she had what she needed. He made people feel needed. He made them feel capable. That's the heart of empowerment. Not doing everything alone, but helping others believe they can do something too. And when people believe in themselves, a community transforms. There was a new energy in town now, a quiet strength. People were no longer just surviving, they were rebuilding together. This happened not because Jason gave commands, but because he gave confidence. Over time, something else began to grow, something as important as hope, trust. People started to trust Jason. Not just because he worked hard, but because he was always there. Every morning he showed up. He didn't wait for praise. He didn't complain when it rained again. He just continued with muddy boots and a smile that said, "We'll get through this." That consistency, day after day, was powerful. People began to say things like, "If Jason says it'll be okay, then it will be." That's how credibility is built, not through fancy speeches or dramatic promises, but through showing up again and again. It's built in the moments when you could rest, but you choose to help. It's built when you make time to listen, even if your own hands are full. Jason's word began to carry weight, not because he demanded it, but because he earned it. He kept his promises, no matter how small. And in a world where people often feel forgotten or unheard, that kind of trust is a gift. It's a bridge between doubt and belief. Jason never claimed to be a leader. He just kept doing the right thing, and that made him one. And slowly, people began to see him differently. Not as someone above them, but as someone they could believe in. Because leadership isn't about being in charge. It's about being someone others can count on. And Jason was that person, every single day. But perhaps the most powerful thing Jason gave to his town wasn't shelter or clean water, or even organization. It was vision. He helped them see what the town could be. Not just fixed, but better, stronger, more united. He talked about opening a learning center for kids after school. He spoke with the local farmers about creating a shared garden, so no one would go hungry again. He encouraged the young adults to form a team that could respond quickly in future emergencies. He didn't just talk about surviving. He talked about building something new. Jason saw possibility where others saw only problems. He painted pictures with words that helped people imagine, dream, and most importantly, believe. That's what vision does. It's like a light in the fog. When people feel lost, it helps them find their way. Vision turns struggle into purpose. It makes the hard days meaningful. And Jason's vision was not just his alone, it became the village's. Each time he shared an idea, someone would say, "Yes, I see it too." That shared belief became a force stronger than any storm. Stronger than any storm. And through it all, through the chaos, the rebuilding, the dreaming, one truth remained clear. Anyone can lead. Jason was never voted into a role. He didn't have certificates or medals. He simply cared. He acted. He believed. And that made all the difference. People often wait for permission to lead. For permission to lead. They wait to feel ready. They wait to be asked. But leadership doesn't wait. It begins the moment you decide to do something kind, something brave, something honest. Jason's story is a reminder that you don't need perfect conditions to lead. You just need the courage to begin. Whether you're 9 or 90, whether you live in Laos or the United States, Germany or Japan, Myanmar or Australia, Malaysia or the United Kingdom, leadership is already within you. It lives in your choices, in your kindness, in your strength to stand up when others are sitting down. Jason didn't change the world. He changed his world. And that in turn changed the lives of everyone around him. Not by being extraordinary, but by being himself fully. That's what true leadership is. It doesn't come from power. It comes from presence, and it starts with you.